Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
All right, let's do some business of sports this morning. And I got a few that I want to hit up on, but we might as well. I feel like we talked about this one quite a bit now, but it's noteworthy. Back to the NBA rights deal here, Lucas. So now Warner Brothers / TNT is like, hold up here. They matched a part of the deal that the NBA had worked out with NBC, but they matched the Amazon one. If I'm reading it correctly, if I understood it correctly, they're matching the Amazon proposal. No word. Now, as Andrew Brand has always said, there will be lawyers.
Yes.
It seems like from some people, like the NBA doesn't want TNT involved. They don't want them to match it sort of thing. So maybe they're trying to figure out a clause to get out of this. I feel like this is developing into kind of a messy situation right now.
It is. I can't remember who was pointing this out. This might have been on the Press Box pod, but like the NBA would rather not have cable involved. That's the thing. I know ESPN, yes, but there is ABC. NBC is obviously NBC. Prime is not cable or broadcast. That's the other place that the NBA wants to be, either streaming or broadcast. They don't want cable.
Mm-hmm.
The streaming is growing. Broadcast is free. Cable is pay and generally declining, to put it nicely. So TNT would be mainly that. Now, yes, of course, they have Max. You're like, well, what about Max? Yes, that's not as big as Amazon Prime, of course. It's not as big as Peacock, but NBC's got the third package, essentially. So, yeah, they don't want that. On the other hand, if there's matching rights, then that's kind of how it works to start. So I don't know exactly how this is going to be involved. Look, when I saw this happen and on Prime, when I first heard that it was TNT, I'm like, oh, so NBC's not gonna. Oh, it's Prime. That had not been speculated really, at least not in a mainstream sense. I thought it was always Warner Brothers Discovery or NBC Universal, Comcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the presumption was Amazon Prime was like a lock for this. And maybe that's because the NBA really wants to go there, again, because they really want to get involved with a major high-quality streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see where the NBA would be like, no, we kind of want them. But if the deal's the deal, that's where, yeah, you can try to find the clause. I don't know exactly how this gets resolved. I mean, as an NBA fan, my first thought was, we get to have our cake and eat it, too. We get inside the NBA and round ball rock. Yes! But maybe not. And also, again, that's totally nostalgia plus prior reputation. In 3 years, again, we might be like, okay, NBC's kind of so-so, and Charles Barkley left and Ernie Johnson retired, and it doesn't really mean much of anything. Though the TNT commentators are like the broadcast teams are by and large pretty good.
Because that would be like Kevin Harlan and Brian Anderson and those guys on there.
Right. So yeah. I mean, where would the presumption is some of them would go to Prime, some of them would go to NBC. Well, if TNT keeps it, I would imagine a lot will stay. I think there could be some sharing as well, because this would not be a huge TNT package, because, again, it gets diluted a little bit more. But that was me from my media obsession.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first things I thought of, like, who's NBC going to have to call the games? I mean, of course, there's talent out there. It's not like they're going to bring in someone who's been calling, like, NAIA games. They're going to have quality. And, again, there could be the sharing, presuming TNT, Warner Brothers Discovery gets this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. You're right. I was surprised at Brand's skepticism, because, like, the story ESPN pushed out was like, yep, this is happening. And they haven't pushed back on them. Now maybe ESPN's like, well, we'll just say this. It doesn't mean we got our part of the deal. No one's challenging us, and no one would. But Brand seems skeptical, but then he's also looking at it from, like, every legal angle, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I the late, great Andrew Brand, too. If you looked at his Twitter feed, you'll know what I'm referencing.
Oh, no, I did not see it. No.
Someone said, the late, great Andrew Brand said, he retweeted, like, late?
Okay.
Like, you dead? I didn't think so.
Yeah.
It's like when we give a memorial award to someone who's still alive. Yeah, so what do you want out of this?
if Barkley's going to retire and stay retired, and I know that's a big if he stays retired, and I don't know if TNT were to still get into this, if he would come back. But I would say if we knew for sure Barkley was not back, then I don't care if it's on TNT or not. If he's back, yes, I want part of it on TNT so we can have that. You take him off, I don't think that show loses a lot. I love Ernie Johnson. I love Shaq. Barkley, though, takes a lot away from that. He does. And if he's legitimately done, go to NBC. That's all I care about then, too.
Prime versus TNT.
I mean, from a... for me to view it easier, it would be TNT.
Yeah. I mean, I still have cable and I have TNT. Yeah. Well, I have Prime Video. I have NBC. I'm good, and I don't watch a ton of games anyway, so honestly, it won't really matter.
The thing for me is, like, if it's on Prime, even if, like, there's a Bucks game or whatever, I'm not going to sign up for Prime for that.
Right.
I'll sign up for Prime for a Packer game.
Because do you have Prime Video?
I actually just paused it for a while because I'm not using it. So
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and we have it because my wife is like a diehard Amazon Prime person. So I'm pleasantly surprised to find out we had Amazon Prime a few years ago. Like, cool. Or Prime Video a few years ago. Like, cool. Okay. On my own, I wouldn't go out and get it. If I were single, I would not. Mm-hmm. But then again, I also haven't watched too much of Inside the NBA either, because it's usually later after a weeknight game. Well, by that point, I'm getting my daughter to bed, and I'm getting ready for bed. I'm like, oh, well, look at the stuff that's trending the next day. So for me, practically speaking, like, it's weird to be like, I want them to keep Inside the NBA, though the most I ever watched it was after the Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan game. Yeah. Remember that one where Chuck's like, oh my gosh. That's probably the most I've watched of any Inside the NBA.
I feel like almost Amazon Prime should try to get that TNT crew, the entire crew. That to me would,
because it's Ernie Johnson, who's a Turner lifer.
I know, but I'm saying I think that would help boost signups and stuff.
Could you ponder Inside the NBA without Ernie Johnson?
No. If I were to rank them, I think Barkley's the number one most important. Then it's Ernie.
Kenny's 3.
Kenny's 4. I'm not a Kenny fan. I'm not a Kenny fan.
See, I
need the Shaq and Barkley going at each other dynamic.
I suppose it's a question of legacy versus current dynamic,
right?
Because the legacy is obviously Kenny Smith. I mean, exactly. I remember seeing the crew in person at the 2000 NBA draft, because that's when TNT was covering the draft, back when they still had it. Side note, they did a better job than ESPN, but then again, you could say that about a lot of the NBA coverage, that anyone's better than ESPN, ABC. I don't know why they can't fully figure it out. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. At Target Center, you could see them. Actually, my dad and I went to that one. That was the legendary Charlie Walters owns this town draft. Someone was ripping on Sid Hartman from the stands. It was hilarious. But my dad's like, you want to go up and take a closer look at them? I'm like, nah, that's okay. And I kind of wish I would have, because it was like in one of the portals to go into one of the seating areas. Mm-hmm. But Kenny was there. First name basis. Kenny Smith was there. Ernie Johnson was there. I don't remember who was all on the TNT crew at that point. But I remember, like, they were famous enough. I knew what the show was and all of that, and thought it was high quality back then, or at least the studio crew, maybe we should say, back in 2000, summer of 2000. So if Kenny Smith left, there'd be part of me that thinks part of the fabric of the show is gone, but I think he's become the weakest link.
Kenny? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, between how Shaq's gotten much better. And early on with Shaq, and again, I didn't watch it enough, but the general thought was, did you just bring Shaq on to have Shaq on? Mm-hmm. It was not a good fit, as I recall, to start. He's gotten way better. And
Kenny just feels like he's the fourth wheel. You know, is that third, but it feels like he's, especially when it's like Shaq and Barkley get going, and then Ernie can kind of, be the mediator in that whole thing.
Plus,
it's like Kenny's like, it's the awkwardness surrounding. Like, I don't feel like he can get into that back and forth between Shaq and Chuck.
Well, and it's vanilla compared to some sports media personalities, but he's had the most, okay, we'll say it, problematic comments of anyone. He's the one that's usually like, okay, old dude, let's just get with a century already. And again, it's not that bad, but he's the one that usually ends up bringing in the closest thing to any negative headlines. So if you had to cut one, I guess he'd be the one. Shaq's could probably be around for a while, but again, Ernie Johnson's getting kind of older.
Yeah,
he could retire at any point. That's why if Warner Brothers Discovery keeps this, and people, I'm sure a fair number of NBA fans are already jacked that inside the NBA is going to stay, even though, like, as we said, well, legally maybe there's a way that this doesn't happen. I wouldn't get too excited about how long it's going to be around. Be more excited for the prospect of the TNT style broadcasts of the games themselves, which really matter most. I know Kevin Harlan's actually getting up in age a little bit too. We forget about that, but you got other people in the pipeline, and Turner generally has done a good job with their play-by-play folks. Bringing Brian Anderson on to do games in the Turner world has been a great move. They'll figure that out. I trust them to do it. And so I don't know with Amazon Prime, or I really should say Prime Videos to use proper branding. I don't know with NBC. NBC sometimes has a great track record, and sometimes they have Drew Brees. So I don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I know the NBC's broadcasts are really good. In terms of like the setup, the staging, if you will, is really good. I don't know. It's still incomplete.
All right, to the next business of sports here. This one's a little bit more generic and such, but I mean, we might as well bring it back up. Is the whole Jordan Love contract right now, because it is a business of sports, right? So Monday, when Goody went up there for his presser, said that the team was informed on Saturday that Jordan Love would not be practicing without a new contract. However, Jordan was there. He was on the field. I don't think it was any accident, by the way, that Monday when he came out on the field, he was right next to Matt LaFleur. I don't think that was an accident when they both emerged. Kind of a little PR thing. That was smart. That was smart. Both smiling too, right? Got that great picture of them both coming out and smiling. Now, I'm not saying there's any drama or anything going on. I'm just saying I don't think that was an accident. But he was there. He's in meetings and all that. So it gives the impression that they're close, that they're very close to a deal, to where the question is like, maybe where's the hanging point? Where's the sticking point here? How much money is he actually going to get? Is it the guaranteed? Is it, how many years? That sort of thing. And I know, and I understand that there's some, there's some, and Dan Patrick's been one of those too that says, I'd like to see more of a sample size with Jordan Love and all that. I would be one of those too. But the thing is, that's not the NFL world, right? It's a different world. It's a different world. And the guy went out there and he had a great, second half, 10 games, whatever the case may be. And as we've seen more times than not just in the NFL, but in the sports world, if you got kind of a contract expiring and then you ended up having a really good season, you're going to get a raise. And you're going to try to force the hand a little bit. And that's exactly what they're doing right now.
You should. I mean, that by the standard of what's happening with similar players in the NFL, that's the proper approach. And it's a risk for the Packers. And I mean that in a good way. Like, that's not like a hot take. No, it's a risk. Younger player. But that's how it works. So you believe in him. He's done some great things on the field. What matters most in a relatively short sample size, he's done it. I don't think, I know there's been some that said this is Goody playing too hardball now. No, I don't. I mean, why would he play hardball for the guy that he drafted to replace Aaron Rodgers? You know what I mean? Like, why would he try to piss off Jordan Love? I don't buy that. I do buy the fact when Goody said on Monday that Goody said he's going to get a contract. He's going to get a big contract and all that. But he also mentioned too, he's like, we want to make sure that we build a team around him too. And I think that's
that's, as a general manager, that's what you have to figure out. That's probably your biggest one of your biggest hurdles that you got to try to figure out is like, okay, we got all this money invested in one player, but then how do you surround that guy with talent so you could still win? Mm-hmm. So you could still win. And I don't know exactly what the sticking point is, if it's guaranteed money, if it's the years over there. But, I mean, if we use the newest contracts out there for comparison, right, it's Trevor Lawrence, 5 years for $275 million. Joe Burrow, same one. Justin Herbert before that had 5 years, $262 million, $262.5. So, I mean, does he get more than those guys in terms of total value of the contract?
For, again, essentially one really good season.
Mm-hmm.
The others have had either multiple good seasons or they've had a good season and some okay seasons, but enough that you have
more of a sample size.
Right. They got to be relatively close. Maybe I think this is one where everyone wants to get it just right.
Yeah.
As opposed to a legitimate standoff. I don't think. I mean, maybe there's something behind the scenes we don't know, and Love's folks really want to go for the jugular. But I don't think there's a sense of we need to set the next record.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of players do that, and I understand why. I don't know that that's the case here. Maybe, but has there ever been a sense?
I think that one of the sticking points, and Goody was actually asked this in the presser, and I think it was Matt Schneidman who asked him this, and don't quote me, but it's an interesting point. It's a good point. With the NBA deals, and now with the lawsuit with the NFL, is there a new media deal that's going to be coming with the NFL soon? A gigantic one, right? I think we talked about it last week, like, NBA's getting that. NFL may be like, okay, we know we can get more than that too, right?
And now that's this 18-game thing.
Right, exactly. So
for those that don't know, like that, suddenly there are discussions at highest levels.
Yeah.
So all of that means, well, if you're going to throw in an 18th game, well, you got to redo the contract somehow.
Yep. You got to have a court. They're going to ask for more. Salary caps are going to rise with big time with more media deals and such. So the one part of this is that, and I mentioned this, and even Andrew Brandt said it too, shorter term contract is probably what Jordan Love's camp wants. So they can cash in again, right?
Right.
Maybe like a 3-year deal and be like, we're going to jump in on that new money then. Green Bay, a longer contract, better suits them. Is it a little bit of a risk because maybe he doesn't live up to it? Potentially, yeah. But look at the Patrick Mahomes one. I mean, that 10-year thing is just like, what a discount for Kansas City now.
Yeah.
What an insane discount. So maybe they're trying to find that happy point of a year. Biggest thing is always guaranteed money, though, too, right? I mean, because that's the amount of money that the guy is going to get regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to be one of the biggest sticking points over there, too. Is Green Bay willing to give him a lot of guaranteed money? Or is it a lot of incentive-based?
And the overall philosophical approach of the Packers. And again, we'll bring it back to Brandt, because he said it before. He believes in this, and he was the guy that was kind of running the ship on a lot of this. But they don't like doing dead money deals.
Yeah.
So which actually you would think that might marry pretty well. That if the Packers don't want to, like, the Packers, I mean, maybe they want to tie him up, but they don't want to have a lot of dead money. The Love camp doesn't want a long deal because they want to test free agency down a little further when there's more money around. I would think that makes me think all the more they can find something from this.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
I wonder how much that 18 game is that a part of this thing now? Because that's getting more traction.
I don't think so, because this feels like this would have kind of gotten going a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Than this announcement. I mean, maybe there was enough behind the scenes, possibly so. I don't think so. I think this was more a matter of Love coming in and saying, yeah, I want to redo this right now. And kind of forcing the hand a little bit. There's a little bit of, hey, come on, guys. I'm going to do this at a higher... Playing the drama thing in a limited way.
And I honestly feel like the impression I get, again, I don't have any inside scoops on this, But I get the impression, okay, the fact that he's there, he's involved in team meetings, he's on the field, I feel like he wants to be there. He wants to be practicing. I also understand he understands the situation that he's got to be more of a leader this year.
Mm-hmm.
And considering he doesn't have the biggest track record of, on-field success, all that sample size that we talked about, you got to balance that too. Like, hey, I don't want to be the guy that's away from the team in training camp and cause that. I still want to be involved, but at the same time, it's a business, and I got to get something to protect me in case I do get hurt. Mm-hmm. It's that balancing act, sort of thing.
He doesn't seem to have. I mean, to my observations, he's not given the impression of more diva quarterback. He seems to be more, we'll get this done, we'll figure this out. His personality seems to be that way, best as we can tell. Like, I keep thinking of, like, the car, helping out the woman with the car.
Well, and I think what helped...
As one example.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's what got my wife all a fan about him, so...
Right.
But I also think what's the biggest, probably, indicator here is I think every single teammate that has come out and said, the guy deserves it.
Yeah.
You don't have those guys say it. It's not Favre. Remember when Favre with Javon Walker? Guy he's got to get here. You got a contract on your contract. It's not that. Yeah. You got these guys saying, no, he like Keyshawn Nixon after the Kenny Clark one was signed. Keyshawn's tweet out say now 10. So I mean, you got guys that on that roster like, that guy deserves it.
He's likable. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. He's likable. So this is going to get done. It's trying to get the right exact thing. That's not the easiest thing to do. They're going to get there. Mm-hmm. I have confidence that it's going to happen. Will it be resolved 1 week from today?
I hope so.
I think it will.
I think it will. Because the longer it does go, then I'll use this. I'm not really worried. I'm just annoyed at that point.
Yeah, I'd be a little concerned because you're getting a fair ways into training camp with. I mean, again, I know he's kind of there, but okay, now we're starting to inhibit a bit of team preparation. So I think, I know maybe the Packers are thinking that, so that's our leverage over you. I mean, there's a lot of leverage things here. I think by a week from today, we're not talking about it.
Mm-mm. No. I think the biggest thing I'm curious to see is the length of it. That, to me, is going to be the curious one.
Will it be over under 3.5 years?
I'll say over, but 4.
Yeah, and again, there's not going to be one of those 6-year deal, but the last 2 years are.
Yeah. I almost feel like Green Bay wants the 5. Maybe Love's camp wants a 3. Meet in the middle and do a 4.
Yeah.
With maybe I don't know if they can do the opt-out sort of thing. They can't do it. You know what I mean?
Right. So now, is this 4 years after this year?
That's the tricky part.
So essentially, it's a 5-year.
Yeah. And maybe that's where it's at right now, too, with that whole thing.
Yeah.
Like Green Bay saying, we'll do a 3-year extension. Well, then it's actually 4, and then Jordan's camp's like, hey, no.
Yeah.
No. Legit out of 3 sort of thing.
Yeah. That'll be an interesting one to see. I'm guessing 4. I'll take the over on it because these contracts usually aren't that short. I will be surprised if it's a 2 or 3-year deal. I think they're going to lock him up maybe a little longer than he wants, but it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing too is we've seen how many times. And I know it's a lot is dependent on good faith, but we've seen guys redo contracts and get bigger deals with years left too.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that.
Yeah.
So
I think it works out.
Yep. Don't freak out, Packers.